Welcome to From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. On the show today, we're going to talk about sports, education, entertainment, family, and faith, and how those things collectively or individually impact our lives. Let's get it. Welcome back to the show. Before I bring on tonight's guest, as always, I'd like to give honor to God, who's the head of my life, for without him, none of the things that I do would be possible. Nothing as a husband, as a father, as a professional, anything. So I want to do that. And next, last week, Dr. AJ Anderson sat in for me. He did a remarkable job. So I would love to thank Dr. Anderson for filling in for me. I was in the journey of bringing my beautiful wife, Linda, and our precious fur baby, Yogi, to Cedar City, Utah. And we are here and we are ready to complete our journey to Southern Utah University. If you haven't been able to catch our shows in the past, don't worry. You can watch previous episodes of From the AD's View on my LinkedIn page, which is Cedric M. Brown, PhD. You can watch me there as much as you'd like. And if you have comments, please put comments in the bottom and we'll get to those. So without further ado, this woman is special in so many ways. She is a mentor to me. She's a colleague to me. She is a pioneer of intercollegiate athletics. She is a Hall of Fame inductee of Central Michigan University, both in basketball and field hockey. She's an athletics administrator at several universities: Central Michigan University, University of California, Berkeley. She worked at the NCAA headquarters as the assistant director of champions. She worked at University of Washington, San Jose State University. And this woman right here was the 2020 Silicon Valley Business Journal 100 Women of Influence. And she was also in 2020, she was the only FBS Division I woman at the women's athletic director in California. And she is now my colleague, the deputy athletic director of external relations. She's a COO at Southern Utah University. Please welcome Marie to it.
Thank you, Cedric, for that wonderful introduction. Very kind of you.
How are you doing, Marie?
I'm doing great. It's a little warm in Cedar City, as you know.
Yes, ma'am.
It's warm all over the country.
It is.
But I'm doing well. Thank you.
It is. It's a little bit warmer where stars are at, right? And Marie to me is a star. Right. I mean, we talk every day. Our offices are right next to one another. And I tell you all the time that I'm thankful that I am your colleague and that you are my mentor. And then you say, well, you're my mentor.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
So you are so kind. The one thing that I want to talk first with you about, Marie, and you and I talk about it a lot, is some of the myths of women athletics administrators, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people believe because you're a woman, because there are women in athletics, that there's not a lot of stuff that they know a lot about. And that is a myth. That is a falsity, right? So what are some of the myths that you've had to overcome as a women's athletics director, and you have been a senior. You have been sat in the hot seat, as we so to call, right?
Yes, very much so.
You've done it. You've done it all. So, what are some of the myths that you've had to deal with or overcome?
Well, first of all, I don't know if you'll recall this, Cedric, but the very first time you and I talked on the phone, you had made the decision. Well, it wasn't final yet that you were going to become a T-bird, and I called you, and you and I had a quick conversation. But I said to you at the time, I said, you and I are going to be lifelong colleagues. I knew then that there was a connection between you and I, and
Yes,
we have a
ma'am.
lot of similarities in what we've shared professionally. So I'm just really honored to know you and to work with you. And I value the time that we have together. We're freshmen together. Well, actually, I think you're supposed to call it first year now. I don't think you say freshman anymore, but you, Doug, and I, we're all first year students here at SUU, and
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
forward to going through 4 years and graduating with you for sure. So I think there's a lot of myths. The one that jumps out, first of all, for me is the sense that women and how women manage collegiate football and at the Division I level, because I can tell you there's a sense that if you're going to command a room of 110 football players and 15 coaches, first of all, there's a sense that you have to be a man. So I'm 0 for 1. Then there's a sense that you had to have played football. So now I'm 0 for 2. And if you didn't play, then you certainly should have coached it. And now I'm 0 for 3. And that it's ridiculous, because I seriously think there are very few people out there that genuinely love college football as much as I do. I grew up with 4 brothers. I've been around sports all my life. So that's a difficult one. And then on top of that, if you do care deeply about football, there's also the myth then that as a woman, well, then you mustn't care about women's sports. That's the other one that's really tough. I mean, to my core, I care about women, in particular women athletes. So, but just because I love college football, and as an athletics director, you spend most of your time at a Division I program where you spend a lot of time sort of managing the enterprise of football. It certainly doesn't mean that you don't care deeply for women's sports. So, I used to think that men and women were the same, but as I've gone through my career, we're not. And people look at us differently, and there are different expectations for us based on our genders. But there's a lot of myths out there.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm even in a short period of time, Marie. I can attest that you can hold your own, right? It's there's no um, you know s- lack of anything when it comes to you, from the knowledge that you have, the nuggets that you share in our meetings, the walks, because you know from the 80s view audience, Marie Tuitt loves to get her steps in. She she walks all over the campus. She loves to get her steps in, and very conscientious about that, and very aware of the being fit, and having the things that we have to do, because nobody is we help, but if you're in one area and you have to deal with development or something like that, or donors and things and I'm over somewhere else, the work has to get done, right? and
That's
and
right.
Marie Tuitt is definitely up for that challenge. Speaking of the love of football, Marie, what do you think about the changes that are happening in FBS football, with conference leaping and things like that?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to go back to the walking. I have this new line, and everybody in the department knows it, that sitting is the new
The news,
smoking. I
absolutely.
had to laugh pretty hard because my friend Michelle was on the phone with her once, and I said, sitting's the new smoking. She goes, well, I am a 4-pack a day gal. And I was like, we got to work on that. So you are right. I'd much rather walk and talk than I would sit in an office. So I appreciate those comments. Um, you know, There's always been change in athletics, and in particular at the Division I. You can go back 100 years, well, almost 100 years when the NCAA was formed. But when you look at, there's always change. And it's interesting because I've always heard that, the change is going to cause this demise for Division I athletics, whether it's, APR rates or the NCAA taking over women's championships in 1980, academic progress requirements, the arms race, which I really don't like that term, but regarding facilities, budgets increasing, salaries. There's always been change. It's a particular tumultuous time right now because, and in particular with some of the issues that are happening, name, image, and likeness is probably the one that jumps out the most, or the transfer portal, because it really is changing the way people perceive athletics. Athletics is under the umbrella of higher education. We are part of the academic mission of the institution. And I think sometimes we forget that, to be honest with you. It is big business. There's no question about that. But to our core, our job is to serve our students and to ensure that they have the best possible experience and leave SUU and every other institution with their degree in hand. It's change and it's unsettling. It's in particular, some of this change is difficult because in conferences, schools are located in more than one state. So you have state regulations that can direct a particular institution, but then as a conference, you're trying to get everyone on the same page to sort of create this fair playing field, which is really, really hard to do. A lot of discussion about what's happening with current issues. I'm confident Division I athletics will survive. It's just a really interesting time right now.
Yes, ma'am. You are so right about that, about the time, and we have discussions all the time about this. Our main goal, two words that our boss Doug Newth uses all the time: student success, right?
Mhm.
And you are so good in our meetings at you know making us think a little bit more like, what does that student success look like, right? What does it look like in the services that we provide, with our
Mhm.
training, with our our sports performance staff, our academic staff? What does that look like? And that is so valuable to me as I continue to grow in my career. Those are the nuggets that I take from you, because in those meetings you're like, okay, and this and this and this, right? So
Mhm.
you're constantly making us think. So, and speaking of mentors, you have one of the most profound mentors that known, right? He's a very well known gentleman. He's a man of faith. Um, Tell me,
Uh,
how important have your mentors been to you in your career? And I'll let you introduce this young man on the screen right now.
well, of course, that's Coach Dick Vermeil, Hall of Fame Coach Vermeil, and I was honored to be part of his travel group when he got inducted in Canton, Ohio, a year ago this August. It was just a touch point moment for all of us that were involved. Um, he is critically important to me. I mean, I love this man. I love his wife Carol. I love what he stands for. I love what he won't stand for. He's just been, from the time that I arrived at San Jose State, and Coach Vermeil graduated from San Jose State, he has been a beacon for me. And again, managing, a FBS level football program, and having mentors to reach out to. Now, I've learned a lot about mentors. One, I do think it's one of the things that separate men and women. I think men are much better and get mentors at an earlier age than women do. I didn't even have mentors until I was in my 30s, or and I had mentors. I didn't even know that's what they were called. So we need to talk about mentors all the time. Most of my mentors have been men, because again, the nature of my work in athletics, I've worked for men, athletic directors. I've only worked for one woman, well, two women if you count the NCAA. And so I have had to depend on those mentors to help me navigate, the ups and downs of what we go through. We talk about mentors all the time here at SUU, and we need to every single day. A mentor is not your friend, they're not family. They're people who love you, but there'll also be people who tell you that they don't agree with you. That happened to me the first time. I called one of my mentors, and I was convinced I was right. And the mentor was exactly the opposite. And I was like, whoa, and he was right. So they're critically important to us in our profession. I have some wonderful women mentors, but most of my mentors have been men. And no question, the apex person in my life when it comes to mentoring is Dick Vermeil.
Yes, ma'am. And he's so special. And I had a chance to play against Kurt Warner, and I know the
Oh,
relationship that Kurt Warner and Coach Vermeil have, and the rest is history. He's in the
yeah.
Hall of Fame, coaches in the Hall of Fame, and things like that. And even in my book that I've written, it talks about. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to tell the listeners, okay, this is academia. This is not Sports Illustrated. This is an excellent book, and all of you need to get it. But it is filled with data-driven hypothesis, and it is Dr. Brown inside out. But it's a wonderful book, so please
and
pick it up.
so and I say that, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support in the book. And it is out on Amazon, and you can get it if you Google my name on Amazon. You can find the book, and and we talk about mentors all the time, and I say this again: you, Marie Tuitt, are a rock star in this business. Talked
Thank you.
about Miss Alfreda, golf, and she's up there too. So me
Mhm.
personally, if I have a Mount Rushmore of women athletic administrators, you are two of them. It's
Oh,
one and two, and then
thank you.
as I go through, I'll find the other two to finish out the four. But Marie, do me a favor, stay with us, right? I'm
Mhm.
gonna go to a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some other things. Um, from the 80s View is produced by the Leon Thomas Group. Here is some more information from LTG. We'll be right back after this break.
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
Welcome back to the show. You're watching From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Be sure to catch us every Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. If you'd like to connect with me, you can reach me on my Instagram at From the 80s View. Let's bring back Miss Marie Tuitt, Deputy Athletics Director of for External Relations, and she's our Chief Operating Officer. And before we get started, Marie, there were some people that gave us some comments. Mr. Dantiel Daniels, Dorian Dunson, and my mother, Patricia Brown. Dantiel Daniels is an up and coming an athletic administrator going through his PhD, or actually getting his EDD. And he is a remarkable young man that I had an opportunity to spend some time with. And Dorian Dunson is one of my mentees. He is now the women's associate head coach at Evansville University. He's an outstanding young man. And so both of those young men, I get an opportunity to mentor. And I cannot forget my beautiful wife, Linda Brown. She's in the other room, and she's saying that we're doing an absolute wonderful job. So as we kind of switch, and not to get heavy in this, but when it came out, I thought about you, Marie, because of the career that you've had over a period of time. We just celebrated last year the 50th anniversary of Title IX. With the new decision on affirmative action, how
Mhm.
how will that impact intercollegiate athletics, Marie, in your opinion?
Well, it certainly can and will probably impact admission policies throughout, throughout our country. I spent quite a bit of time in the state of California. They already had affirmative action policy, so it won't be an adjustment for the state schools, but it will be for the private schools. And it's a time in our country that I think all of us need to pause and really take a look at the mission of the institutions where we serve. And I think there'll be ways in which institutions are going to adjust to the rulings by the Supreme Court. Athletics, that certainly is the case here at SUU. When you look at our underrepresented student body, a number of them are in our athletics department.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
Cedric, you and I know that, we grow the most when we are around people that are different than we are.
Yes, ma'am.
If we all looked alike and talked alike and thought alike, number one, I'd be bored in 2 seconds. And then, the saying, you stop learning, you stop leading. We are enriched by people who have walked a different path than we have. And so I think, I was talking to someone in the state of Washington, and I think I think institutions are going to get creative about how they look at their admission policies in order to serve a more diverse group of young people. But boy, oh boy, it shocked us, all of us. I think we knew it was coming. I think we knew it was coming. And yet when you actually heard the verdict from the Supreme Court, it was a bit stunning for all of us.
Yes, ma'am. And and as we talk, we talk about our families, and the diversity of our families, and the how our families are great in that they are different, and representing different communities and things like that. And we've talked about those things, Marie. And I thought about you when it came down, and I said that I'm going to get your perspective from an individual that's been in intercollegiate athletics at a high level for most of your career, right? From the beginning, a Chippewa in Central Michigan.
That's true. That is
and
true.
and so and I know that it will affect individuals differently, right? Individuals that look like me, it'll have a little bit more of a different impact, and individuals, like persons on our staff. Jeff also is a person of color on our staff, and and so, but the one thing that I love about our staff is that we, like you use the word embrace. We do embrace the diversity that's there, right? Everybody else on the staff is more outdoorsy, right? You're coming from California. Todd Brown, our deputy AD on the internal side, he's from Cedar City, and he likes to go hiking and everything. And you all are trying to get Dr. Brown to go out and go hiking, and I'm like, listen, Murphy's Law said anything that can happen will happen. So the one time that I go out in the wilderness, there's going to be a bear or mountain lion or something, and it's not going to be good. So I'm going to stay inside.
Well, I think, and certainly our leader, Doug, and I just want to take a second to say a few things about Doug. I've known Doug for quite a while. Obviously, our paths crossed, when he was at Nevada, um, and he is just a terrific leader. I've learned a lot in the 4 months that I have been here
Man.
from him. And, going back to that comment about student success, it reminded me of when I was in college and it was halftime and we were down by 24 points at halftime. And the first thing the coach said, and I loved her, Dr. Fran Koenig, a pioneer of AAW, first thing she said was, we have to score more points. And I said, we got that part. Okay. How are we going to score more points? And sometimes we say that in athletics, we want to be more competitive. Well, let me tell you, that's the easiest part about that is to say it.
Right.
And I think when you're referencing student success, how are we going to help our students, reach the goals that they have for themselves, which basically means reach their potential. But I love the mix that Doug has put together, because we do have a number of staff out. There's two things about people at SUU. Number one, they love their school and they love their city.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
we have people of 20, 30 years who've been here, grew up here. And then we have kind of, the new kids on the block, which obviously is Doug and you and I. Yep. And we come, from very different backgrounds than the people who have lived here and their commitment to faith and have gone to school here. And, and then the three of us come and we come to the table with some different experiences. And I think that's awesome. I think it's great. I love the fact that we have people who are historians, and I love the fact that we have a lot of first years that are looking to navigate SUU athletics forward.
And you're so right in that, Marie, that Doug has been mentoring me for the past 2 years, right? And prior to Doug coming here, he had a development job at Reno, and he called me and we talked about the job. And we know Doug, very, very open, very honest. And during the interview, he's like, "You have a lot of energy. You're exactly what we're looking for." And then the final decision was he needed somebody in the Reno area that knew the landscape of the development piece, right? And so you understand those things. And even though I've done development, even though I've done fundraising, watching you and watching Danny Ferry, who's a very talented young man, I might add, right?
Absolutely.
Watching you all navigate a niche that really hasn't been cultivated yet, right? Because as you delve out, you find more and more individuals that are interested, and you're excited, and you come in and you're on the phone, you're walking the halls, and we have a meeting, you're like, I gotta go meet this person. Well, tell the audience very quickly, Marie, the young lady that you are either met or you're going to meet, that the softball stadium is named after at SUU.
Oh, yes. Well, we had a weekend last weekend up in Salt Lake City, and we had an event on Friday night, and then Saturday was going to be SUU night at the Salt Lake City Bees baseball, which was great. But there's a woman named Catherine Berg who served for 33 years at
Absolutely.
33 years.
33 years.
Talk about and she coached every sport: gymnastics, tennis, basketball, volleyball. So Ms. Berg lives in Heber, Utah, which if you've never been there, is absolutely beautiful. And it was the first time I'd been to Salt Lake City in 4 months, and I didn't know how often I would be going to Salt Lake City. So anyhow, I took a detour and I went over and I visited with Ms. Berg. And let me tell you, it was a highlight of my weekend. She and I just yacked. And to be honest with you, we could have talked for hours and hours just about her walk and her journey and her love of SUU. Never married, no children, very strong LDS faith. She left SUU to care for her sister who was disabled. But you talk about a wonderful woman, and like I said, it was the highlight of the weekend. Yeah, Catherine Berg. And you mentioned her, and we had a football reunion on Friday night, and I was reading her the names of the men that were going to come to the reunion. She's like, I know him. And she knows our coaches. And it was I was really glad that I did it because, like I said, I think, I gained a lot more from it, I think, than she did. It was a good visit.
And from everything that we hear about her, because we have a colleague, Miss Christy Florence, who is a
Mhm.
family member of Miss Catherine, and so we are really kind of standing next to royalty in Christy Florence and the thing, because she grew up watching her aunt
Yep,
build SUU athletics, right? She grew up
exactly.
here and watched her do this for many, many, many
Yeah.
years, as
Year
did
after year.
Todd Brown, who's from
Yep.
here, and
And
Nate,
Sid and
Hepling
Nate,
is
yep.
right. So we have
And
so many
Paula.
wonderful
Yeah.
individuals here at SUU that are homegrown, and then they help us newbies,
That's right.
us rookies,
That's
right? They
right.
they help us, and we also bring an outside lens, right? And not to try to take away anything foundational or anything historic. We want to stand on the shoulders of that and add to that, and I think that that's what you mean when you talk about what Doug has put together, because he brought a rock star and a young a
Two
young
rock
ener-
stars.
a
That's right,
young
two.
energetic knucklehead,
Yep.
that wants to do this. And the last thing, Marie, before we close the show, I always do it with all of my guests, is just want to ask you, how has faith or spiritualness, right, that one domain of wellness that we talk about so much, in those seven domains of wellness, how has faith or spiritualness impacted you in your career and in your life?
Hmm. Well, I think I know my walk with spirit has been an interesting one in that I was raised Catholic,
Yes, ma'am.
uh, and my two boys went to Catholic school, K through 12. But I struggled. I struggled and still do with Catholicism, which is really about, in the global view, it's about service and forgiveness.
Hmm.
And we forgive you if you commit the same sin 100 times. It does not matter. We just keep forgiving you.
Yes, ma'am.
But the role of women in particular, I kind of, at a young age, I was confused by the lack of power in my sense of women. I wasn't raised, though, to think that I could do whatever I wanted. I was raised, that women basically, they were either teachers or secretaries or nurses. I didn't think I could be a flight attendant. I wasn't even on a plane until after college. And, you and I are very similar. We are both first generation. I'm from Detroit. You're from the Bronx.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, and so my spiritual path has been an interesting walk for me. It's gone. I've stopped. It started again. It took some turns. I know that it's not done, but I do know this. Navigating life is not always easy. And spirituality for a lot of people is the key for them to deal with the things that come up in their life. Because as we know, life is hard and it's not fair.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, and so, whatever that is for folks, I think needs to be honored, whatever the spiritual
Sure.
aspect of their lives are.
Absolutely.
And for me, I look at it as a journey. I'll be honest, I'm very interested in learning more about the LDS life. It's a path that I don't know much about, and while I'm here, I want to take advantage of learning about that organized religion, which, as you know, there's all kinds of them in the world.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it's been very personal for me, and I look forward to continuing the journey. I can tell you that.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I can, speak to the time that I've been around you and the thoughtfulness and the kindness that you exhibit. I mean, when they say the glass is half full, I think I think yours is like three quarters to 90% full all the time. I mean, you always have a very positive way of looking at things and a very realistic way of looking at it too, because the job has to get done, right?
Yep.
And sometimes we can spare your feelings, And sometimes we just gotta dredge forward and move ahead, right? And
Right.
then bring you along and bring your feelings along with you. And that's one thing that
Right.
I really enjoy about working with you. And and like you said, whatever makes a person feel whole, and whatever brings them
Yeah.
to that wholeness is good for them. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my cousin Annette Taylor, who is doing big things in ABA basketball out there in California. She's with the and she's in that Pacific North Division, and she's the chair. So she's a
Excellent.
very integral person
Yeah.
in my life, because she
Yeah.
was in sports and things like that, and had an opportunity to follow her. But Marie, if someone wanted to contact you, I think you're just going to give it verbal here. If someone wanted to contact you or get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Well, the easiest is Southern Utah University staff directory.
Okay.
Simple. You can find. I'm also on LinkedIn,
Okay.
but pretty easy to find. I do want to say one other thing too about that spiritual walk, because it makes me think of Doug. To be honest with you, and I think you feel this way too, about how grateful we are to have this opportunity, and to not only work with Doug, but to work with our other colleagues in the entire athletics department. And I think feeling grateful is very spiritual.
Yes, ma'am.
And I remind myself every single day about how grateful I am, and how grateful I am to know you and how you came into my life. So I appreciate the time to visit with you, Cedric. Value you very much, and look forward to moving this program, like I said, forward. Let's go. And Cedric and we are the energized bunnies on this floor. You can tell when he comes in the office, and you can tell when I come in, because it's like, we're not messing around here. We are serious about what we do, and we're going to have fun doing it. And,
Yes, ma'am.
And I
Well,
really
looking forward
enjoy.
to it. You and Danny are doing some remarkable things. Your marketing team, they're doing some remarkable things. My wife and I, we were out in the community, and we ran into to Gabby yesterday, um,
Oh,
and saw her and introduced her, and then we ran into Nate Coombs and his wife Valerie in the community. We were at the farmers market yesterday, which is something that I've never ever done
yeah.
before. Being a kid from New York City, even when I was in Murfreesboro when I went to high school, I think the only time that I was out like that was at the Apple Festival in Murfreesboro, Illinois, which is
Yeah.
every I think in September sometime. But Marie, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that you were able to share this out so individuals could watch it, because you always drop some nuggets. That's what I say all the time. Marie is just dropping nuggets like the Pied Piper, and if we follow you, we're going to be okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Appreciate you very much.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank my tonight's guest, Miss Marie Tuitt, for being on the show. Don't forget to join us each Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern for more open and honest discussions from the 80s view. Good night, and God bless.